The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee steps aside from his leading role in the probe involving Russia's meddling in our elections. Representative David Nunes under fire for potential ethics violations. Critics questioning whether the Republican-led House and Senate committees can be objective in their investigation of contacts between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin and allegations of surveillance by the Obama administration. So is it time for a special prosecutor to take over? Peter Zeidenberg spent nearly 2 decades investigating cases at the Justice Department. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
So there's a growing list of mostly Democrats who think it's time for a special prosecutor. You have called the special prosecutor role, though, quote, deeply flawed mechanism. Why?
Well, let's put it this way. It's not a cure-all for this. And for Democrats and independents and whoever Republicans who are really interested in getting at the bottom and finding out all the facts and seeing where the evidence lies, a special prosecutor is not necessarily going to be what they're hoping it is.
They don't find facts and see where evidence lies?
They do, but they do it in secret. And if they don't find a case at the end of that investigation that they can prosecute and that they are convinced that they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law, they pack their bags and they go home. They don't make a special report. They don't do a press conference.
All the evidence is essentially lost. It never gets public?
It's exactly. It's locked up. Under the law, under the grand jury secrecy, that information would never be made public. There's no mechanism for it.
The reason people want a special prosecutor, though, is that there are concerns that the intelligence and committees' investigations might be compromised. I think a lot of people have said they feel if something's become too politicized, if you can't trust the Congress people or the senators leading an investigation, it seems to make sense that the next thing to do is a special prosecutor.
Well, again, it may seem that way, but again, I think that a lot of people are conflating in their minds the old special prosecutor statute, which expired in 1999, I believe. It was never renewed by Congress. And under that statute, that was the one with Ken Starr and a lot of other special prosecutors. And when they would do their investigation, at the end of the day, they would issue a long report, and everyone would say, okay, now we understand what everybody did, what the roles were, what their conduct was.
That's not how it's done today.
It's not done like that anymore.
So then what should the strategy be? If there is a sense that people have lost confidence that there is a non-political investigation that could be done in the House and the Senate, what would you recommend? Ideally,
they would have an independent commission, a 9/11 style commission. Problem with that, of course, is it requires, as I understand it, legislation which would have to be signed by the president, and I don't anticipate President Trump signing off on that. And failing in that, a select committee, as opposed to a special prosecutor, isn't trying to bring a case. They're investigating these facts, and they're doing what they can do in public. And at the end of it, they would make a report, and they would make their findings public to the extent that they could, that it's not classified. So, that's what really needs to happen. People need to know and have some confidence that this election was on the up and up.
It'll be interesting to see if some of those calls for a special prosecutor shift with this. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.